go. That's the best lighting we're going to get. Pop the computer up a little bit. That is better. And we've got the lights. We've got the computer on the right, at the right height. We've got, a viewer. Hello. I would probably get more people joining if I did this on any kind of timetable, but what, I'm going to put in work. I've never done that before. Put some earrings on. Yeah, that'd be nice. That'd be fun. So, how are you? I'm okay. I'm tired. I'm having a lot of trouble keeping my eyes open. I'm doing long blinks, which is like sleep, but comes right beforehand. Yeah, that looks nice. They're very heavy though. Snakes. Snakes near my brain. That's not even funny. Okay, so we will do a recap before we start, as usual. And I'm gonna put the quote from Borelius in chat so that you guys can all Borelius. So that people can see it. The essential salts. Wait, why am I doing that? Why am I not just copy pasting? I'm a smarty. I mean, that's really what you need from a recap, I think. Go, copy that text and tweet it. And then we will know what we know and go where we go. We're live. We're live, but not yet actually reading. Hi, Jessie. It's nice to see you. Oh no, that's too long to tweet. Dang it. The philosopher may ... I'm trying to put the relevant quote on Twitter. Oh, that's okay. I hope that your work is somewhere where they let you listen to, Lovecraft. Right. The essential salts of animals. An ingenious man may ... raise. Fine shape of an animal. Head chef at a French restaurant. Wow. That's amazing. Are you listening with headphones or are you making everybody listen? Because that's so funny. Hey, what's up, John? Is Danny with you? I'm trying to put this quote in Twitter, and it's yeah, no, I'm going to put it on 2 parts. It's way too long. But it is the quote at the very beginning, the one: the essential salts of animals may be so prepared and preserved that an ingenious man may have the whole ark of Noah in his own study, and raise the fine shape of an animal out of its ashes at his pleasure. And by the like method, from the essential salts of human dust, a philosopher may, without any criminal necromancy, call up the shape of any dead ancestor from the dust whereunto his body has been incinerated. By Borellus. Or perhaps Borellus. Of course you are. Hi, Danny. And by the like... ... Everything's taking me way too long to figure out today. So, very, very brief recap. Charles Dexter Ward, he's a young man. He was obsessed with history. The history of his, small town in Lovecraft country. And one day he discovered that this guy... Hey, Josh. Oh, that's wonderful, Danny. You're having such a great day. My perfume's really nice. Just pretend I'm there. I'm just like talking to you. Damn, I want sushi now. So, in his readings, in his studies, Charles Dexter Ward has come across this guy called Joseph Curwen, who moved from Salem in 1692, which is like the Salem time, to this town, and had a really bad reputation and seemed excessively long-lived. And then he finds out that this guy, Joseph Curwen, is actually an ancestor of his, that he married a woman named Anne Tillinghast, and they had a daughter called Elizabeth, or the other way around, I can't remember. But all mentions of him have been kind of expunged from contemporary sources. So he's really excited about that. Then he found some writings actually by Curwen, I believe. Yes, he did. Yep. He found Joseph Curwen's house in Olney Court, which is like... everyone just thinks it's super evil and cursed now, because of course they do. And he's found something behind the paneling, which was kind of where we left off. Also, this is all flashback. In the present day, Charles Ward was in a crisis mental health facility, which is not the words they used, but he escaped. And his family doctor is quite relieved about it. The really crucial thing, though, and what Dr. Willett's opinion formed the definite source of Ward's undoing, was the matter found in August 1919 behind the paneling of the crumbling house in Olney Court, Joseph Curwen's house. It was that, beyond a doubt, which opened up those black vistas whose end was deeper than the pit. Ooh. And before I begin, I'm going to take my antihistamine because I forgot. Like I always do. It's kind of nice, isn't it? It makes me very relatable. I think that when I'm super famous, I'm just going to keep doing this as like a bit to make people think they know me. Oh shit, it's rubbish day. Oh, that's awesome. I can get some rubbish down. It's nice to be back on Lovecraft after, reading really good prose. Now we're back on Lovecraft and it's like, then the antiquities of the white race made Charles's involuntarily celibate mind race with antiquarian possibility. And it's like, yeah, Howard, get it. Exactly. When I'm a star, I'm definitely going to pretend a bunch of relatable shit. Thought I heard a thump. Part 2. An Antecedent and a Horror. Chapter 1 of Part 2. Thank you, Lovecraft. Joseph Curwen, as revealed by the rambling legends embodied in what Ward heard and unearthed, was a very astonishing, enigmatic, and obscurely horrible individual. Please say this about me one day. He had fled from Salem to Providence, that universal haven of the odd, the free, and the dissenting, at the beginning of the great witchcraft panic, being in fear of accusation because of his solitary ways and queer chemical or alchemical experiments. He was a colourless-looking man of about 30, and was soon found qualified to become a free man of Providence, thereafter buying a home lot, just north of Gregory Dexter's, at about the foot of Olney Street. His house was built on Stampers Hill, west of the town street, in what later became Olney Court, and in 1761 he replaced this with a larger one on the same site, which is still standing. Now, the first odd thing about Joseph Curwen is that he did not seem to grow much older than he had been on his arrival. He engaged in shipping enterprises, purchased wharfage near Mile End Cove, helped rebuild the Great Bridge in 1713, and in 1723 was one of the founders of the Congregational Church on the Hill. But always did he retain the nondescript aspect of a man, not greatly over 30 or 35. Sorry, I'm fucking up my words a little bit. I'm waiting for this antihistamine. As decades mounted up, this singular quality began to excite wide notice. But Curwen always explained it by saying that he came of hardy forefathers and practiced a simplicity of living which did not wear him out. How such simplicity could be reconciled with the inexplicable comings and goings of the secretive merchant, and with the queer gleaming of his windows at all hours of night, was not very clear to the townsfolk, and they were prone to assign other reasons for his continued youth and longevity. It was held for the most part that Curwen's incessant mixings and boilings of chemicals had much to do with his condition. Gossip spoke of the strange substances he brought from London and the Indies on his ships, or purchased in Newport, Boston, and New York. And when old Dr. Jabez Bowen came from Rehoboth and opened his apothecary shop across the Great Bridge, the sign of the unicorn and mortar, there was ceaseless talk of the drugs, acids, and metals that the taciturn recluse incessantly bought or ordered from him. Drugs, acids, and metals. Nice. Yeah, you never rest, and you moved here in 1692, but it's 1723 now, and you have not aged. I actually have a very simple lifestyle. I live the Gwyneth Paltrow Goop style life. I wake up, I get some very base water, extremely basic water, I squirt a little bit of lemon into it. That aligns my chakras every morning. Gwyneth. Yeah, he could at least wear a fake grey moustache or something. Put in some effort. Don't show contempt for the people around you, even if you feel it. Acting on the assumption that Curwen possessed a wondrous and secret medical skill, many sufferers of various sorts applied to him for aid. But though he appeared to encourage their belief in a non-committal way, and always gave them odd-coloured potions in response to their requests, it was observed that his ministrations to others seldom proved of benefit. Oh, Kerwin, you're an amazing alchemist. Can you please, heal my sciatica? Yeah, I'll just put some food coloring into a water bottle. Hold on a second. I wonder if he took money. At length, when over 50 years had passed since the stranger's advent, and without producing more than 5 years' apparent change in his face and physique, the people began to whisper more darkly, and to meet more than halfway that desire for isolation which he had always shown. Private letters and diaries of the period reveal, too, a multitude of other reasons why Joseph Curwen was marvelled at, feared, and finally shunned like a plague. His passion for graveyards, in which he was glimpsed at all hours and under all conditions, was notorious, though no one had witnessed any deed on his part which could be actually termed ghoulish. On the Pawtuxet Road he had a farm, at which he generally lived during the summer, and to which he would frequently be seen riding at various odd times of the day or night. Here his only visible servants, farmers, and caretakers were a sullen pair of aged Narragansett Native Americans? First Nations people? What's the right term? The husband dumb and curiously scarred, and the wife of a very repulsive cast of countenance, probably due to a mixture of alt-right blood. In the lean-to of this house was the laboratory where most of the chemical experiments were conducted. Curious porters and teamers who delivered bottles, bags, or boxes at the small rear door would exchange accounts of the fantastic flasks, crucibles, alembics, and furnaces they saw in the low-shelved room, and prophesied in whispers that the close-mouthed chemist, by which they mean alchemist, would not be long in finding the philosopher's stone. Oh, it's a Harry Potter crossover. Nice. The nearest neighbours to this farm, the Fenners, a quarter of a mile away, had still queerer things to tell of certain sounds which they insisted came from the Kerwin place in the night. There were cries, they said, and sustained howlings, and they did not like the large number of livestock which thronged the pastures, for no such amount was needed to keep a lone old man and a very few servants in meat, milk, and wool. The identity of the stock seemed to change from week to week as new droves were purchased from the Kingstown farmers. Then, too, there was something very obnoxious about a certain great stone outbuilding with only high, narrow slits for windows. Great Bridge idlers likewise had much to say of Kerwin's townhouse in Olney Court. Not so much the fine new one built in 1761, when the man must have been nearly a century old, but the first low, gambrel-roofed one with the windowless attic and shingled sides, whose timbers he took the peculiar precaution of burning after its demolition. Here there was less mystery, it is true, but the hours at which lights were seen, the secretiveness of the two foreigners who comprised the only men-servants, the hideous, indistinct mumbling of the incredibly aged French housekeeper, the large amounts of food sent to enter a door within which only 4 persons lived, and the quality of certain voices often heard in muffled conversation at highly unseasonable times, all combined with what was known as the Pawtuxet Farm to give the place a bad name. Right, 2 really good comments. Depends on the individual. First Nations, Indigenous people, Native Americans. Okay. Yeah, I substituted it for the word Indian, which is not right and not what we say now, but also not as bad as some other words Lovecraft used. J.K. Rowling and H.P. Lovecraft love initials and are mortally terrified of people they don't understand. And lazy, lazy prose. Yeah. I mean, yeah, Lovecraft was more cool with the idea of a man's soul living inside a female body than J.K. Rowling seems to be. I mean, he thought it was bad that they were trying to steal bodies, but anyway. Let's not get into that. Big old can of worms. Oh, can of tentacles. In choicer circles, too, the Kerwin home was by no means undiscussed. For as the newcomer had gradually worked into the church and trading life of the town, he had naturally made acquaintances of the better sort, whose company and conversation he was well fitted by education to enjoy. His birth was known to be good, since the Kerwins or Corwins of Salem needed no introduction in New England. It developed that Joseph Kerwin had travelled much in very early life, living for a time in England, and making at least 2 voyages to the Orient. Oh, the Orient. And his speech, when he deigned to use it, was that of a learned and cultivated Englishman. But for some reason or other, Kerwin did not care for society. Whilst never actually rebuffing a visitor, he always reared such a wall of reserve that few could think of anything to say to him which would not sound inane. There seemed to lurk in his bearing some cryptic, sardonic arrogance, as if he had come to find all human beings dull through having moved among stranger and more potent entities. When Dr. Checkley, the famous wit, came from Boston in 1738 to be rector of King's Church, he did not neglect calling it on one of whom he soon heard so much, but left in a very short while because of some sinister undercurrent he detected in his host's discourse. Charles Ward told his father, when they discussed Kerwin one winter evening, that he would give much to learn what the mysterious old man had said to the sprightly cleric, but that all diarists agree concerning Dr. Checkley's reluctance to repeat anything he had heard. The good man had been hideously shocked, and could never recall Joseph Kerwin without a visible loss of the gay urbanity for which he was famed. I'm going to need, something stronger than water. I'm going to need another Pepsi or something, because my eyes are just closing, you know? I'm doing the kitten falling asleep backwards thing. More definite, however, was the reason why another man of taste and breeding avoided the haughty hermit. In 1746, Mr. John Merritt, an elderly Englishman of literary and scientific leanings, came from Newport to the town which was so rapidly overtaking it in standing, and built a fine country seat on the neck in what is now the heart of the best resident section. He lived in considerable style and comfort, keeping the first coach and liveried servants in town, and taking great pride in his telescope, his microscope, and his well-chosen library of English and Latin books. Hearing of Kerwin as the owner of the best library in Providence, Mr. Merritt early paid him a call, and was more cordially received than most other callers at the house had been. His admiration for his host's ample shelves, at which, besides the Greek, Latin, and English classics, were equipped with a remarkable battery of philosophical, mathematical, and scientific works, including Paracelsus, Agricola, Van Helmont, Sylvius, Glauber, Boyle, Boerhaave, Beecher, and Stahl. Maybe. Led Kerwin to suggest a visit to the farmhouse and laboratory, whither he had never invited anyone before, and the two drove out at once in Mr. Merritt's coach. Ooh. Lipstick. Mr. Merritt always confessed to seeing nothing really horrible at the farmhouse, but maintained that the titles of the books in the special library of thaumaturgical, alchemical, and theological subjects, which Kerwin kept in a front room, were alone sufficient to inspire him with a lasting loathing. Perhaps, however, the facial expression of the owner in exhibiting them contributed much of the prejudice. The Bazaar collection, besides a host of standard works which Mr. Merritt was not too alarmed to envy, embraced nearly all the Kabbalists, demonologists, and magicians known to man, and was a treasure house of lore in the doubtful realms of alchemy and astrology. Hermes Trismegistus in Mesnard's edition, the Turba Philosophorum, Geber's Liber Investigationis, and Artephius's Key of Wisdom all were there, with the Kabbalistic Zohar, Peter Jammy's set of Albertus Magnus, Raymond Lully's Ars Magna et Ultima in Zetzner's edition, Roger Bacon's Thesaurus Chemicus, Flood's Clavis Alchemiae, and Trithemius's De Lapide Philosophico, crowding them close. Medieval Jews and Arabs were represented in profusion, and Mr. Merrick turned pale when, upon taking down a fine volume conspicuously labelled as the Qanun-e-Islam, he found it was in truth the forbidden Necronomicon of the mad Arab Abdul al-Hazred, of which he had heard such monstrous things whispered some years previously, after the exposure of nameless rites at the strange little fishing village of Kingsport, in the province of the Massachusetts Bay. But oddly enough, the worthy gentleman owned himself most impalpably disquieted by a mere minor detail. On the huge mahogany table there lay face downward a badly worn copy of Borellus, the guy from the quote from the beginning, bearing many cryptical marginalia and interlineations in Curwen's hand. The book was open at about its middle, and one paragraph displayed such thick and tremulous pen strokes beneath the lines of mystic black letter that the visitor could not resist scanning it through. Whether it was the nature of the passage underscored, or the feverish heaviness of the strokes which formed the underscoring, he could not tell, but something in that combination affected him very badly and very peculiarly. He recalled it to the end of his days, writing it down from memory in his diary, and once trying to recite it to his close friend Dr. Checkley, till he saw how greatly it disturbed the urbane rector. It said, as we all know, the essential salts of animals may be so prepared and preserved that an ingenious man might have the whole Ark of Noah in his own study, and raise the fine shape of an animal out of its ashes at his pleasure, and by the like method, from the essential salts of human dust, a philosopher may, without any criminal necromancy, call up the shape of any dead ancestor from the dust whereunto his body has been incinerated. Hang on. Okay, here's a question that I've never asked myself. The Reanimalta. Oh. Okay, I've read this story before and I've never asked myself this question, but if you're a magician, right? Sorry, I'm boring myself with my derail. Why do you want to call up a bunch of incinerated animals? You're like, I did it. I burned a sheep until it was just ashes, and now I can raise that sheep up. And I'm like, what's up, sheep? And the sheep's like, I literally don't even know I'm dead. Maybe if a magician had a beloved pet. Maybe then. But anyway, it was near the docks along the southerly part of the town street, however, that the worst things were muttered about Joseph Curwen. A hat full of ashes, rabbit ashes. You hand it to a little kid and you're like, pull the rabbit out of the hat. And then a little thing of magical fire goes out of it. And the kid tips the hat upside down. It's just ashes. And they start crying. And you're like, oh no, you ruined it. Oh, you killed my rabbit. Oh no. I wouldn't do that. Sailors are superstitious folk. And the seasoned salts who manned the infinite rum, slave, and molasses sloops, the rakish privateers, and the great brigs of the Browns, Crawfords, and Tillinghast, all made strange furtive signs of protection when they saw the slim, deceptively young-looking figure, with its yellow hair and slight stoop, entering the Curwen warehouse in Doubloon Street, or talking with captains and supercargoes on the long quay where the Curwen ships rode restlessly. If I were creating a world based around trade and I named a street Doubloon Street, I would think I was being funny. Curwen's own clerks and captains hated and feared him, and all his soldiers were riffraff from Martinique, St. Eustatius, Havana, or Port Royal. It was, in a way, the frequency with which these sailors were replaced, which inspired the acutest and most tangible part of the fear in which the old man was held. A crew would be turned loose in the town on shore leave, some of its members perhaps charged with this errand or that, and when reassembled it would be almost sure to lack one or more men. That many of the errands had concerned the farm on Pawtuxet Road, and that few of the sailors had been ever seen to return from that place was not forgotten, so that in time it became exceedingly difficult for Curwen to keep his oddly assorted hands. Almost invariably several would desert, soon after hearing the gossip of the Providence wharves, and their replacement in the West Indies became an increasingly great problem to the merchant. Yeah, Harry Potter is of the opinion that magic is terrible and magicians are insane, but I think magicians become insane because magic doesn't follow the laws of logic. So their brains literally rewire themselves to follow non-logical pathways, if that makes sense. I'm just saying, there are no magic detectives in Harry Potter world. I mean, there are, but they suck. Oh my gosh. Long blinks. Very difficult. In 1760, Joseph Curwen was virtually an outcast. Yeah, it's a never-ending hanky. What about it? Just go on the floor, Harry, twinkled Hagrid. You can piss on the floor at Hogwarts. Hee hee hee, I'm Hagrid and I'm lower class. And that's not Hagrid's voice. I did not realize you meant Lovecraft. I see HP, I think Harry Potter. I think it when I see a bottle of HP sauce. Every single time. I'm not even kidding. But yeah, Lovecraft is also afraid of magic. He's afraid of magic, women, people of color, people of different religions, time, the ocean, heights, depths, the future, the past, everything. Definitely everything. And octopodes. In 1760, Joseph Curwen was virtually an outcast, suspected of vague horrors and demoniac alliances which seemed all the more menacing because they could not be named, understood, or even proved to exist. The last straw may have come from the affair of the missing soldiers in 1758, for in March and April of that year, 2 royal regiments on their way to New France were quartered in Providence, and depleted by an inexplicable process far beyond the average rate of desertion. Rumour dwelt on the frequency with which Curwen was wont to be seen talking with the red-coated strangers, and as several of them began to be missed, people thought of the odd conditions among his own seamen. What would have happened if the regiments had not been ordered on? No one can tell. Curwen! You gotta stop sucking up the semen, dude. You gotta leave some semen for the rest of us, okay? We're at war. We need all the semen we can get. It's a shorter list to say the things he was not afraid of, yeah. I don't think there is anything. No, probably not. Meanwhile, the merchant's worldly affairs were prospering. He had a virtual monopoly of the town's trade in saltpeter, black pepper, and cinnamon, and easily led any other one shipping establishment, save the Browns, in his importation of brassware, indigo, cotton, woolens, salt, rigging, iron, paper, and English goods of every kind. Such shopkeepers as James Green at the sign of the Elephant in Cheapside, the Russells at the sign of the Golden Eagle across the bridge, or Clark and Nightingale at the Frying Pan and Fish near the new coffee house, depended almost wholly upon him for their stock, and his arrangements with the local distillers, the Narragansett dairymen and horse breeders, and the Newport candle makers made him one of the prime exporters of the colony. Himself, maybe? Maybe. Maybe. Come on, bitch, keep your eyes open. Do not fall asleep live on YouTube. Ostracized though he was, he did not lack the civic spirit of a sort. When the colony house burned down, he subscribed handsomely to the lotteries by which the new brick one, still standing at the head of its parade in the old Main Street, was built in 1761. In that same year, too, he helped rebuild the Great Bridge after the October Gale. He replaced many of the books of the public library consumed in the Colony House fire, and bought heavily in the lottery that gave the muddy market parade and deep-rutted town street their pavement of great round stones, with a brick footwalk or causey in the middle. About this time also he built the plain but excellent new house, whose doorway is still such a triumph of carving. When the Whitefield adherents broke off from Dr. Cotton's Hill Church in 1743 and founded Deacon Snow's church across the bridge, Curwen had gone with them, though his zeal and attendance soon abated. Now, however, he cultivated piety once more, as if to dispel the shadow which had thrown him into isolation, and would soon begin to wreck his business fortunes if not sharply checked. End of chapter 1 of part 2. Wow. I'm falling asleep, and they're calling a cab. And I'm not having a smoke because I'm going to want to go back to bed. And also, I don't smoke anymore. You know that. Oh, I decided on my Halloween costume, by the way. It's going to be the most annoying thing in the entire world. Get this. Pickle John Wick. It's John Wick, but he's also Pickle Rick. It's the worst fucking thing in the world. Everyone's going to hate it. I may need to stop soonish and take a rest because every time I look down, I'm just like, you're live. I'm not actually going to. Man, I wish. My other thought was going as sexy Batman, but Robert Pattinson. So it's like a sexy Batman outfit, but you're wearing Uggs and a big hoodie that just reeks of stale smoke. And like when girls try and talk to you, you just go outside and vape. You're just like, oh, I'm too complicated right now for like anything. And you get them to bring you food and stuff and then you don't eat it. So I've got a lot of really good ideas. But yeah, I think I'm going to break off for now and then do another reading in a few hours after I've had a wee nap. Yeah, Robert Pattinson Batman is the best costume. It's like, oh my god, I guess. I have a really complex and sad backstory, but I'm not going to tell you about it. I don't want to burden you. I'm so important, so are my feelings. I really want to see that movie. The trailer looks so good. But yeah, I'm going to leave off for now, and I'm going to come back again in a couple hours. But thank you very much for joining me for this brief moment and for learning a little bit about Joseph Curwen up to the year 1761. It's very exciting, isn't it? We need all this historical background because Lovecraft was a major history dork and so am I. to everyone else, it's probably really annoying and stupid and boring. But yeah, I'll be back later today. Oh, you don't know the half of it, my friend. See you in a few hours. Bye.